Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and we all know that there's this big election coming up, big controversial election, and I don't care if you voted Democrat, Republican, you choose not to vote at all, it doesn't matter to me, but what does matter to me is that we are all prepared. The more prepared we are as individuals, as small communities, the less chaos there's going to be in the world. So let's talk about a few things that we can do to prepare for this big election coming up. Maybe nothing's going to happen. Maybe the election will come and go and peace will be everywhere. Everyone will be happy and they'll be holding hands in the streets. Or perhaps, maybe, I don't know, the cities will be on fire. It's hard to say leading up to it, but we can anticipate some of these things based on previous events, historical events, when very controversial elections have occurred. And we can plan accordingly. And that's what I want us to do. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do to be more prepared leading up to this very controversial election. First of all, where do you live? What is the most likely scenario that's going to happen in your area? If you live in the country in a rural area on a small little dirt road somewhere, chances are, unless you turn on the TV, the news, or get on social media of some sort, you'll have zero idea that an election even occurred. And that's fantastic, and that's why I choose to live where I live. If I turned off my devices and my TV and stuff, I would have zero idea that, New York City is on fire. It wouldn't matter to me. And I have strategically placed myself and my family in this location because of that. If you live in an urban area such as New York or Atlanta or Los Angeles or wherever, if you live in a really big urban area, the likelihood of civil unrest, if that's what you want to call it, of occurring is going to be significantly higher. We need to act accordingly to prepare for that civil unrest. Not saying that it's going to happen. Maybe, hopefully, nothing happens and we wake up after the election and everything is fine. But you just never know. So first things first, we need to develop a plan. Again, what's the most likely scenarios, and let's plan for that. If you live in a suburbia type area, chances are probably nothing's going to happen. Rioting and stuff isn't going to reach you if you live outside of the city limits, most likely. So your plan is probably just to stay home, to bug in, if you will, and have the supplies and gear and the people in that location so you can kind of just wait this thing out. And that's exactly what I plan on doing, and that's what I highly recommend everybody does to start with. If you are planning on staying home, you have to make sure that you're well stocked. My personal opinion, what I would suggest that all of you do is have at least a very minimum of 2 weeks supply. So what that means is you could walk in your house, you could lock the door, and you could stay in there for 2 weeks. As boring and as miserable as that would be, you could stay in your house for 2 weeks without leaving and not miss out on anything. You wouldn't be without anything. You would have all the food, you'd be eating normally, you'd have all the supplies, the toiletries, the soaps, the detergents to wash your clothes, all that stuff. You'd have all the supplies that you need in that location, at least 2 weeks. More would be better, obviously, but we've got to be realistic. Not everybody has put in the time, the effort, and maybe doesn't have the budget to do more than that. And I understand it. Maybe you don't have the space to store more supplies if you live in an apartment or something like that. I get it, but everyone can do 2 weeks. If you're planning on staying home, I don't anticipate there being some sort of major power outage or communication cell phone towers going down. It's not like a natural disaster. I think this is going to be significantly different, but still, we can plan for things like that to occur anyway. It's better to have it and not need it kind of thing. So if you've got your generator and you haven't started it up in a while, maybe fire that thing up, make sure it's running, working properly. Radios, make sure you got radios juiced up. Make sure you've got someone to talk to on the other end of that radio. Communicate with your community, your friends that you have, your neighbors perhaps, and say, hey, we're going to be on this frequency or this alternate frequency in case that first one isn't working. And we'll just check in. If cell phones go down, turn that radio on, and let's just try to make contact happen via radio, because communications can make all the difference. Now would be an excellent time to boost up your home security a little bit. I've done videos on perimeter security, home security in the past on my On3 channel. So check those out if you haven't seen those already. But you can do some very simple things just to make yourself a less appealing target. It's not about having guns on the roof and razor wire and booby traps. although that stuff is awesome, it's more about just making yourself a less attractive target. Don't be the weak house on the street. If you've got a gate up and then your neighbor doesn't have a gate, which house is probably going to get picked off first? That's all I'm saying. Again, don't freak out. I don't think there's going to be raiding parties going from town to town. Don't think that's going to be the case, but this is just good, smart, common sense stuff anyway. Make your home less appealing to the would-be robber bad guy. If you've got a gate up, you've got motion sensing lights, you got a dog barking, your house is probably not going to be hit, and they're going to go down the road just a little ways to the much easier target with no gate, no lights on the house, and it's just going to be simpler for them because predators don't like to take risks. Now, let's say that you are in an urban area, a major metropolitan area, and you have been wise, you've been smart, you've done all the things that you can do, but still, the chaos is coming your way because of this, political, crazy world that we live in. And let's say there's some rioting in the streets and it's coming towards you. You need to have a plan to get out of there because you need to get yourself and your family out of harm's way. And just staying on top of the reports in your area, listening to the radios, checking in just to see what's going on and not burying your head in the sand is going to be important so you can see this stuff coming from a ways away. If you live in a city, I would just try to not be there after the election, just in case. But if you want to stay home, I totally understand that. But just plan accordingly and have a plan in place. If we need to bug out, if you need to get out of there to get to safer ground, to get to a safer place, have a plan ahead of time. Contact a relative that's out of the city. Contact some friends. Reach out to them and say, hey, if stuff gets a little hot around here, a little heated, is it cool if we come crash there for a couple days? If you have been a good friend, you've been a good neighbor, you've been a good son, cousin, whatever, then most likely whoever you're speaking to is going to say, yeah, come on, it'll be great. We'll fire up the barbecue. But those things need to be taken care of now. Make sure you've got some sort of plan, some destination in mind. Just fleeing an area and running off into the middle of nowhere doesn't really do you much good. Have a plan, have a destination. If you do plan on going to somebody else's house in this situation, bring food and supplies and the toiletries and towels and clean clothes, and bring stuff to make sure that you're not a big burden on the people that you're going to visit. Come prepared and be ready to help. When you show up, say, hey, is there anything I can do to help out around here? And kind of, not necessarily that you're trying to, not that you owe them anything, but it's just a good practice to, be as helpful as possible when you show up to someone's house. If this is something that you possibly might be doing, fleeing the area, make sure that your vehicle is well maintained. Make sure that the oil has been changed. Make sure the tires aren't bald and have air in them. Make sure that your windshield wipers work. Check all the fluids. Do all the things. Make sure your vehicle is going to work for you when you need it. Make sure you've got enough fuel to get yourself to the location and potentially back without having to refuel, without having to stop for fuel, because in these situations, oftentimes there will be a backup, a big line wrapped around all the gas stations, not necessarily because there's a fuel shortage to start with, but because people are freaked out and wanting to fill up, and they're buying all the bread and milk off of the shelves because they're concerned that there won't be any when they need it. A fuel shortage could result because of this, because of everybody just buying up everything. Don't be that guy. My rule is a quarter tank is empty. If I'm getting close to a quarter tank in my fuel tank in my truck, then I go ahead and top it off. That is empty. I'm out of gas at a quarter tank. And if you've got a quarter tank of fuel, most likely, unless you're stuck in gridlock traffic, having to run the heat or something like that for long periods of time, a quarter tank can get you out of just about any city in America and get you well outside of the danger zone. So make sure you've got at least a quarter tank. If you are getting close to that, fill your tank up and just be ready. And make sure you've got enough fuel to get yourself to your location and hopefully back without having to stop. I recommend that you have at least 3 routes planned, because roadblocks, whatever, if there is some sort of riot going on, authorities can shut down that area and prevent you from going through for your safety. So make sure you've got at least 3 ways that you can get, your primary, fastest, most direct way that you always go. a secondary route that takes you a little bit more off the beaten path, and then probably your least favorite route is the one that takes you way in the wrong direction, circles around, and then gets you there eventually. But it's the scenic route, the long way there. I don't think that communications are going to go down. I don't anticipate the major power outages or anything like that. I think your GPS, your Google Maps is probably still going to work and all that. But just in case, wouldn't be a bad idea just in general, all of this aside, to have an actual hard copy paper map of your area so you can use that to navigate from point A to point B. Have a bag packed. You know, let's say vehicles are not a thing, gridlock traffic, roads are shut down, whatever, chaos is rampant, the world is on fire. We'll see. Have a bag packed. You know, have the basic supplies that you need to make life happen on your back. Food for a few days, rations, 3-day rations of food for you and everyone in your group. Make sure that you got basic camping supplies, some sort of shelter, ways to start fires, all the basic camping supplies. Water. In some places you'll need to carry a lot of water because it's just not accessible. Or at a minimum, have ways to purify water on the way. I like a Grail water filter. That's my go-to, because it's also my water bottle. It filters contaminants, chemical contaminants, and waterborne pathogens. And it's the actual water bottle itself. That's why I like it. I also like the Sawyers. Those are good, but there's lots of good ones out there. Just do your research and buy a good one. And make sure you can replenish your water supply while you're on foot. First aid. Make sure you've got a first aid kit and you know how to use it. A protection device, make sure that you know how to use it. Make sure it's oiled up and working properly and you have greased the groove. Make sure that you are still capable of doing the things. That goes for first aid as well. Make sure you kind of refresh your memory on how to do some of these things so that it's not, the first time in a long time when you actually need it. Grease the groove, get caught back up, refresh it a little bit. Now, like I've said a couple times before, guys, I don't think that, the world is going to be on fire. I really hope it isn't. I hope we can all just get along. But if history shows us anything, we can't just all get along, unfortunately. So regardless of who you voted for, if you didn't vote at all, it doesn't matter. Let's just take a few steps to be a little bit more prepared going into this conflicted time and make sure that we're not part of the problem. We can be part of the solution. We're not the crazy person running out in the midst of all this, trying to fill up with gas and buy the bread and the milk off the shelves. We don't want to be part of that. We want to stay out of it. We want to let the crazies deal with it, ride this thing out. We want to ride this thing out while the crazies hash it out in the streets. So anyway, I really do appreciate you guys watching. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave lots of comments. If you don't feel like talking about this, leave us any comment. Any comment will do. Tell me what your favorite color is. I don't care. Share the video. That's always helpful with someone that you think it might be beneficial for. If you've got a relative that hasn't quite come around to the realities of preparedness, then please share this video with them, and I'd be really grateful for it. And until next time, guys, what's the worst that could happen? Let's go on through.